I love this, like, me acting like we weren't just talking.
Yeah.
4 seconds
Yeah,
ago.
for like 10 minutes.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Super Sensitive Show. As you know, my name is Daria, and I'm here with an old friend from high school, Jake Santos.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So Jake, tell me about what program you're in at OCAD and what you're up to.
So I'm in drawing and painting, second year at OCAD. This past week I just completed a group show with 2 OCAD alumni and 6 current OCAD students. The 2 alumni are Emerald and Olivia, and the rest were it's Ali, Connor, Lily, Hyan, Benjamin, and me.
Cool.
So yeah, all like young emerging painters, which was really cool. And the opening night was on Thursday, and we took down on Sunday.
Yeah.
So just up for a few days, but yeah.
That's awesome. And how did you find that? Or how did that come to you?
Yeah, so one of the group members, who's my good friend Benjamin Cromian, he had the idea to do a group show of like emerging young artists. Mm-hmm. And he kind of wanted to pursue something outside of OCAD.
Okay.
And throughout probably like a month or so, he put together this like rough group of people who he thought would fit kind of the bill. And then we all agreed to do it. And over a few months, we like looked for some spaces, worked on applications. It was a lot of like groundwork.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to like wiggle our way into a gallery.
Yeah.
But yeah, we like super lucked out.
Yeah.
It was at Redhead Gallery in the 401 Richmond building. And that's how
That's awesome. Do you find that, like, because I feel like with painting, a lot of the work can feel really personal and really, like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like, sometimes you kind of want it on display, but sometimes it feels like you're also making it for yourself and for your kind of your own process. Do you feel like the work you shared was did you make it for that show, or was that something that you were kind of working on prior?
Yeah, for the most part, the 2 works I had were made for the show.
Okay, cool.
I think when we all started to make works, there was like a conversation that was happening unintentionally, and kind of sticking to that.
Right, like an overall sort of theme.
Yeah, there was something that we were all kind of like, I think, tapped into.
Okay, cool. What was the name of the show again?
Lithify.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. Is that a word?
It is a word.
Okay.
I'm going to do a terrible explanation of what it means.
Yes, let's hear it.
It's just the idea to like solidify something, or like to kind of sculpt something and have it permanent.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, it was like a group decision.
Very cool.
So yeah, I can't take full credit for I don't know. I didn't know what it meant prior to the show.
Okay,
so.
okay, good. Because I was like, I really don't know what this word means, but it's a cool word, and like honestly, it sort of fit. Now, upon hearing the explanation, and even before, it definitely fit the energy of the work. And I'll put the usernames of the people who were part of the show and some pictures from the show, because it was a great body of work. Tell me a little bit about your process. Like, you're in drawing and painting. When you first started at OCAD, did it kind of feel like you had to prove something being in a program like that can be very broad? Or like, kind of what was your mindset starting in a program like that?
It was pretty intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
I think because coming from like high school, was a specialized art school, and having that kind of benefit of being familiar to like a critique space and like making artwork for school, I felt a little more comfortable than I think most people, but it was still intimidating. And like, obviously it's just such a good opportunity to be around artists all the time. That kind of pushed me to want to pursue this beyond the classroom and really like show out if I'm doing assignments and critiques, and taking advantage of like working in the studios and meeting people and stuff. And yeah, I think the pressure was good. I don't think it like hindered me by any means.
Okay,
but
that's good.
Yeah, it's been a motivating experience to kind of be around a lot of great artists.
Yeah, that's a big part of it too. Being in illustration, there weren't a lot of like actual studio spaces, and maybe that's an OCAD critique, I don't know. When you're just surrounded by people making things, it kind of adds to your experience for sure. Do you have like a method of working that kind of sets you up for making things? That's a really weird way to ask that question, but like what does your like process look like? Do you have an idea and then you sketch it and then you go, or does it look a little different?
Maybe more of the latter. Like I like to think I'm pretty thought out when it comes to like putting works together.
Okay.
Like I try my best to be as like intentional.
Right.
And I don't think anything I've made just kind of like happened.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's not room for like experimenting or like seeing what happens. I think with painting especially, that kind of becomes the case.
Right.
And I think often it's me like experimenting and it not working out.
Right.
For the most part, like I don't think it's worked out yet. I think it's just constantly like that process. Exploration, like digging. And I think sometimes it's landed more than others, but yeah, I like to think I go into creating or like making anything with an idea or like some sort of notion of what it's gonna be, and then seeing how it comes out is more up to the process.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to describe it. And I've seen a lot of people that are like, I can't move towards the final part until I've completed the sketches or the linears or like the general outline of what it's going to be, because it's too scary. But I understand what you're saying in terms of like not waiting for something to happen, because I think like even when I'm painting, that's sometimes where I find myself like I want something magic to happen and I want to just do something randomly and hope that it's gonna really kind of kick off, but there's times where it doesn't, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Like specifically for my program, like drawing and painting, experimenting is like kind of necessary.
Yeah.
In order to kind of have something interesting come out.
Yeah.
Like I think when it comes to very like design-oriented courses, you can kind of have those templates or like foundations to whatever it is you're creating, but like I still see painting as like an art practice, and that allows itself to experimentation and kind of trying to push in whatever it is that you've believed about the medium beforehand.
Right. That's a good way to put it, and honestly that's something that I think we can all benefit with, like even when it's not painting, right? Even if it's something digital or writing or anything, like kind of trying to overcome your assumptions of it prior in your experience, and even just like pushing it. What's your, I hate asking like what's your inspiration, but when you sit down to work or when you're kind of coming up with your ideas, what are you trying to solve a problem? Are you like trying to put something out that hasn't been made before? Because I really find your work very interpretive, and I think there's a lot of room for it to be specific to you, but it's also can be something to other people. Are you trying to make something that everybody can get something out of, or are you kind of working through something internally when you're making things?
I think it's a little bit of both, for sure.
Okay.
Like I don't think any of my work is very like expressive in the case that I'm not really, none of the work I've made is like meant to kind of like express myself.
Okay.
Or like some form of like my identity or like my experiences and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, I think like in terms of inspiration and like references, often most of my pieces just kind of come like there's an idea that I have, and like what is the idea, like the singular idea, and then looking outwards and seeing, has this idea existed and who else has kind of done similar things, and researching that. I think a fair amount of my like process is like researching and like reading and watching and listening and stuff, and yeah, especially with the performances.
So So how did you get into that, or what was the moment that was like, okay, I want to move out of a 2D? Because I know you've worked in like 3D and you know, expanding the flat medium, but then to move to a completely different level, which is using your body and sound and action as a form of art. How did that start?
I've always been into performance art for a while. Like, it's always been something I've been aware of and like engaged with kind of passively, and a lot of like my favorite artists are performance artists or have done performance related works, and I think I just didn't feel like any idea I had fit performance until like fairly recently. I think too, like, one of the best courses I've taken at OCAD is the Performance Art 1 class taught by Paulette Phillips, and it was like a really inspirational and really like motivating environment to kind of have this type of art form that's like immaterial.
Right.
Because I do think, like, for the most part, most of the programs at OCAD are like material based or like that kind of notion, but like performance art was just like strictly immaterial, and so kind of it's challenging the way it forces me to think a bit harder and like use a medium of like myself. But yeah, I think that it's just been an exploration of ideas, and they've been fitting into performance.
Do you think that there's an element of, or at least the part of it where you're filming it, like, is that an additional layer on top, or is that part of it? Like, are you required to document it in a certain way? And because I guess you need to consider all the different ways that it's being viewed and interpreted.
Yeah, most of my performances I've luckily been able to do with a friend of mine we're kind of doing performances together. Their name's Patrick, and we've been pretty like intentional in terms of how we capture the pieces. I think we've wanted to keep it pretty minimal, like not very manipulative, just keep it as is. I think the best way to experience them obviously is like in person, live, but some of them that's just like not possible. And I think it's also just like I've seen how other conceptual artists or performance artists have like captured their works in the past, and I think, you know, that works pretty well, and we should just kind of do that. You know?
Very cool. I can imagine, like, it's great that there's a course. I didn't even know that course existed, so that's really good to know. But it's cool that you had the support of that course, because I can imagine it could be pretty intimidating if that's just something you wanted to do on your own. But that's really awesome, and it's really cool. Like, I've known you since probably for years, just through high school and stuff, and it's like it's really cool just to see the development, and a true artist is always kind of looking and changing and looking inwards and experimenting at the end of the day, and I think you're really successful at that. Do you ever feel like scared about that? Like
for sure. Like, I think like since high school it's had this weird momentum, and I think it hasn't slowed down yet.
That's good.
And I think it's just picked up a bit, and that's kind of like, it's motivating and it's exciting, and like, it's what I want to do, but it's also like super intimidating. Especially like the painting show was a lot to kind of like digest. It was, you know, 2 alumni and everyone else, like, they still go to OCAD, but they're all like older grades and have been around longer, and they're all people whose work, like, before I knew them, admired. And so to like be on the same platform as them is incredibly, like, it's just like unbelievable. Like, I'm just like incredibly like gratuitous to Ben and to like that whole group for kind of being so like welcoming and understanding and accepting, and then also just for other people to like engage with my work. I think it's pretty interesting. Like, even the performances it's kind of like a weird experience to like have people that I don't know like come up to me about them. It's cool. It's just like, well, like, I know you saw that. You know? Because I think for the most part, like, I did art pieces for like years, but it's always just been for like myself or whatever. But yeah, to be like recognized for it it's a lot of pressure, but I'm incredibly grateful for that.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing that, you know, starting being in your second year and having those experiences are super thrilling and can bring you a lot of energy. But I find like even sometimes those experiences can feel daunting, because it's like, oh, that's a lot for right now, like, you know, what's to come, and that can be intimidating. But I think that, you know, the learning experience of working with a group of people, watching the public like interact with your things, and seeing that like growth of like, oh, I worked on this by myself alone in a studio for so many hours, and now people are looking at it like, I wonder what they're thinking and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
You can take a lot from that. You can be kind of intimidated and worried about it, or you can kind of take it as, I don't know, like energy almost.
Yeah.
And that motivation that you were talking about of like, what are other people thinking, and if that's something that benefits you in your process.
Yeah, for like most of those months too, once we'd like agreed on the space and we got approved and everything, it was like, okay, now we have to sit down and make the works. And I'd kind of spent like a few months like within my house just trying to work on pieces, and I made like a bunch of work, trying to figure out what was sticking and what was, you know, not. And yeah, it just became this like incredible slump of like, I never kind of felt so discouraged by like painting before. And like I've painted for like 8-9 years now, and it's like that's just like never happened. And I think it was just like being in your own independent space and confronting like your practice as a whole and how that's going to be interpreted was like super intimidating. But then I found like I went to school again to paint in the studios, because I was painting all like first year in the studios, and then I was in the same studio with a few of the people I'm in the show with, and I saw their works, and just be in the same space with them, like community. Like I think I'm super lucky to be in drawing and painting, because like that fourth floor is like a community in itself. Like that program, like the technicians, John and Lie, they're all amazing, and even profs just like come in and out all the time. It's just like a great community, and you get super energized by that. And like in such a short period, like half the amount of time that it took me to figure out what I was doing, I ended up making both of the works. And I'm just super lucky to have that type of community and motivation, because I was like in my house by myself, and then to see all of that period, you know, turn out into like the amount of people that was there that night, I'm just like, I still don't believe it.
It's a good feeling, and like when I've done group shows, I've felt the same way. Like you're riding off that high for a couple of weeks, and you know, a turnout itself can make you feel, I don't know, it's a form of validation to a degree. Whether or not the validation is important to your work process and stuff like that is kind of irrelevant. Like the fact that people are there and people are looking, and it's kind of similar to working in a space with people. There's overlap, right? People are looking, they have things to say about it, they're enjoying it, you know. And I think that it's definitely a priceless experience at the end of the day. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thanks for coming by too.
Yeah, of course. It was so cool. It was interesting because I follow all these artists on Instagram, right? And you kind of, that's a whole other community side of it, right? Like you're kind of seeing people grow their work, and then to actually see it in person is a whole other thing.
For sure.
Like the textures and subject matter and the colors, like it's completely different. But that's amazing, and I look forward to continuing to see how your work is gonna grow and see you go through school. I think that's amazing. You've been doing really great.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm super like, I'm feeling it, you know, like, you know, you feel it moving, and like I've been trying to do as many performances as possible with my collaboration with Patrick and getting those works out. yeah, just that, and plus the painting stuff. It's been a lot of movement lately, but it's nice. Yeah.
That's good, and that's the best way to do it, is to keep saying yes to things and trying new stuff, like you say, but also trusting that you've done so many things in the past that have been well received, or even you feel like have helped develop where you are right now, and that's still valuable, even though it's stuff that you've done before. But yeah, thank you so much for being on the show and talking to me about your art. And that's it.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, this is pretty cool.
It's pretty fancy.
It's pretty fancy, yeah.
All right, so we'll wrap up for today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on the Super Sensitive Show. Goodbye.